Today I'm going to talk a little bit about why focusing on what our bodies can do doesn't actually help in terms of gaining a deeper sense of self-acceptance around size. So I'm somebody who has experienced long COVID. I also have several chronic illnesses that long COVID exacerbated. I developed deep fatigue and exercise intolerance. As a result of all of that, I gained weight, and that was okay. I knew that my body was doing what it needed to do to survive. I knew that my body was doing the best that it could with what it had. And I knew that my value and my worth did not change based on my size because I've already done this work of self-acceptance. I've already done the work of becoming securely attached with food and with my body and with myself. As one of my clients like to say, I am so much more than my pant size. What I'm noticing is that in these self-acceptance spaces, in the body positive spaces, in even sometimes the fat activist, fat liberation spaces, there is this idea of I want to be grateful for what my body can do. I want to celebrate what my body can do rather than what my body looks like. And I get the sentiment. Like, I understand why we focus on that instead, because sure, we're grateful that our legs carry us where we want to go if they do. We are grateful that we can move through the world unencumbered. But what happens when you can't move through the world unencumbered? What happens when your body doesn't act the way that you want it to? What happens when you lose function? This is part of the aging process. This is also sometimes what happens for people with disabilities. And it's really important to recognize that my body isn't only valuable based on what it can do. That's actually tied to capitalism, right? The idea that I need to be this productive member of society to be worthy of love and respect, to be worthy of being cared for and tended to. So I personally had to really shift my thinking around this. My experience as an RN really helped because there was so many times where people would be in the hospital with a life-changing diagnosis where they could no longer function at the level that they used to function at, possibly for the rest of their life. And yet we still care for them and their family still cares for them. I won't say that they're treated equally to how they were treated previous to that experience, right? Because we know that there's a discrepancy. We know that ableism exists in our world. But it helped me to recognize, like, just because that person wasn't the person, working in the hospital, or that person wasn't the person who was doing construction anymore, or, providing income for their family, that didn't change their value or worth as human. So it helped me to recognize that my value and worth does not change. Now, I won't say that there isn't grief involved, because being a productive member of society comes with privileges. Not being able to utilize my body to do work in the same way, or to have limitations on how much work I could do, was something I had to really grapple with and grieve over. I had to recognize the loss of privilege. I also had to recognize the loss of just ability to live life in the way that I want to live life. Right? So I wanted to be able to go have fun, adventure, play, connect with people. And it can be really isolating in our culture because we don't have good systems for supporting one another through illness, disability, through aging. That's something that I'm personally working on, but I was so glad that I also didn't have the layer of shame or beating myself up or blaming my body, thinking that I wasn't good enough because of how I looked now. It was a lot easier to go through this experience without blame on myself. And this is part of that coming to a place of secure attachment with oneself. So again, it's really important not to conflate our value and our worth with what we can do, how we make other people happy, whether we are able to hike or whether we're able to bake for people or anything like that. Changing your mindset to recognize that you're inherently valuable and each human is inherently valuable is healing in a lot of ways. And it really highlights the problems with the systems of inequality that we have in our culture. It really highlights the problem with a lot of the ways that we think. Even I recently had a grandchild, my first grandchild. Well, my daughter had my first grandchild. And I'm noticing how often I'll say oh, you're being such a good boy when he doesn't cry. Or when he becomes soothed, right? And I really want to avoid instilling in him that he receives positive attention only when he's compliant, right? So it's incredible how deeply ingrained these things are. If this is something that you're struggling with, know that it makes sense. There are so many great books out there. Alice Wong wrote a lot about disability justice. There recently was another one that came out. I'll try to link it. But one of the things that we don't talk about a lot in the body positive space is intersectionality. And that's one of the reasons body positivity really doesn't work for a lot of people. The idea that we're supposed to like the way that our body looks or approve of the way that our body functions is just really empty. It really doesn't hold up under all the circumstances that we're likely to go through in our lifetime. So instead, shifting to a place of deep self-acceptance, knowing that your value and worth is inherent, appreciating the experience of being human and all of its limitations, right? And then acknowledging the way that the systems set us up for that thinking of conditional acceptance. So those are some things to keep in mind. I'd love to hear your personal experiences with these things. If you have thoughts, questions, again, I'm going to be sharing more of these things on my YouTube channel. I'm so excited to be able to go more long form with you all, but there'll be shorts too, don't worry. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe for more videos about becoming securely attached with food and body.